welcome to the Pixelated Sausage Show. Hi. How is everyone doing? Hopefully well. I am, of course, your host, Marcus Nez. Hi. I was so confused. Did I already say my name or not? Did I double up? If I did, holy crap, did I just have a stroke? But we're here to talk about some games, including, let me get the list for you. Date everything. There's a gun in the office. Kulebra sounds better. Kulebra and the Souls of Limbo, Zombie Cure Lab, Alien Breakout, Maiden Cops, and TERASLIDE. But before we get to all of those, little quick site streaming, etc. update. I am still playing Death Stranding. You're going to hear that for at least probably 3 more weeks. I am so into the game, it's ridiculous. We are 16 plus hours into this week of streaming, and I have yet to really make any progress towards this story. We started this week at the very beginning of episode 5, Mama, and we are somewhere still in the episode 5 of Mama. I think I maybe did 1 or 2 proper SAM order for this particular mission orders, whatever. But I've mostly been completing connections. I went back to the first area and completed all the connections there. And then I've done a lot of road building after returning to the second area. But that's enough about that. We'll save that for potentially the new format, structure, way of doing Attack the Backlog, where because with a game like this being as big as it is, taking as long as it is, and my decision to go from breaking up longer games into parts and just doing one single Attack the Backlog episode for a game regardless of length. So if a game is 2 hours long to beat, and if a game is 200, they'll both get a single episode. That means in a case like Death Stranding, if I did not already have a bunch of games or a bunch of episodes already in the bank, there would be a lot of weeks without an episode. And I said, well, that just means when I finish Death Stranding, I'm going to have to play a bunch of short episodes or a bunch of short games to build up another bank of episodes so that I can move on to, say, The Witcher 3 or Elden Ring or, I don't know, another Yakuza Like a Dragon or so on and so forth. You get the idea. However, I don't know if that's great for anyone. For me to fill space between games I really want to play and games I'm really enjoying streaming, and at least I've heard from some people, with me enjoying the game I'm streaming, it makes them more enjoyable streams overall. That it's probably not great to put in between to fill the bread of my sandwich with a bunch of short games that I may or may not have any particular interest in or whatnot. That's not to say I'm never going to play short games again. There are plenty of short games I want to play, and I don't want to just go back to back with long games. I would like to have some kind of break, but to realistically create a bank, if I were to finish Death Stranding when I finish it, which I'm looking at potentially 7 weeks at this point. I have no idea, but it's feeling long. I would have to play a half a dozen, if not more, really short games. And by really short, I mean I would have to play through and complete at least 2 in a single week. Because if I just do a game that takes 1 week, that's not giving me any extra time, because that's just going to give me the episode for the next week. I have to play games that are 8 hours or less, 10 hours or less. And that just might not be the right way to do things moving forward. And I don't think that's going to really bother people. However, one thing I was thinking was I could move the way I was doing games with their part episodes to a Patreon exclusive thing where I have Attack the Backlog filler episodes, we can call them, where I'm just giving y'all an update on where I'm at with the game, how I'm feeling, what kind of stood out to me that week, and so on and so forth. And those could be little short, quick little audio sides that are exclusive to Patreon to give also, in addition to putting something out there, giving a bit more incentive to become a patron. If that is something that would interest you, hearing those updates, if you're not able to make the streams but want a kind of summary of the week in Attack the Backlog and so on. I have not cemented any of these thoughts, but I feel like that is the way to go. Feel free to leave a comment on this episode if you have your own thoughts on that idea. Like, no like, so on and so forth. The part episodes, that's a cemented thing. I'm not doing any more of those. If I was, then I already missed multiple ones with Death Stranding, and I don't want to do it. I don't like the parts. I never really liked the parts. The parts were, honestly, just a means of making sure there was always weekly content, a weekly release for Attack the Backlog. That was the purpose of breaking out Attack the Backlog episodes into parts with games that were longer. That was the only reason, and I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't think you like it. You may be... I mean, that is essentially what the potential Patreon thing could turn into, but less so-ish. But I think everything is better to have a single episode as opposed to parts. Anywho, that's enough about all that jazz. Let us get on to what I've been playing, starting with Date Everything. It is exactly what it says it is. A game where you can date, quote unquote, everything. Can you date literally everything? Yes and no. If you don't know the premise to Date Everything, it is a game where you play a customer service representative at a company and you get laid off on your first day, and you are replaced by AI that I believe your side of the company was responsible for creating, and therefore you kind of made yourself redundant, but you didn't, because maybe people in your side of the company did, but you were just a customer service representative who was talking to customers and issuing refunds or sending them to management or denying them and so on. And after that happens, you are sent a pair of rose-colored glasses that when you wear them, it brings your house to life. It brings the inanimate objects in your world to life. It personifies them. It gives them life. So that now your bed, your door, your blender, your fuse box, your so on and so forth are all now, quote unquote, alive. They're living things that you can go on dates with, allowing you to date everything. So at its core, it is a dating sim experience, but it also has this sub story that is very much so a commentary on the current workspace landscape of AI and its taking of jobs, making redundancies, things that we've seen with the most recent round of Microsoft layoffs, Xbox layoffs, among other companies as well. So there is a bit of that commentary in the game as well, to just being this funny, quirky dating sim. But as you might expect with a dating sim that has so many potential suitors, and in the game they're called datables. That's what they refer to the inanimate objects that are now given life. In total, unless there's some hidden ones, surprise ones, because I went through the entire list in your phone, because the phone is how you interact with certain things and get information, look at stats, etc. There are 100 total datables. That's a lot. That is a lot. And with that, you are probably thinking, and you would be right to think, it might be a quantity over quality standpoint. However, in the time I've put into it, which is a few hours, and I have interacted with 25 of the potential objects, so I've covered about a quarter of the game. The number of datables I found interesting in any way, shape, or form, not fully me wanting to date them, but just me not wanting to talk to them, I would say is in around the 30 to 40% range, or close to half. And that means I enjoyed or would like to pursue conversing with about 10 of them. The other 15 I did not like for this reason or that reason. But if that ratio continues, that would lead me to enjoying 40 of the characters. I don't expect to enjoy 40 of the characters, but even with the abundance of characters, that's still a good ratio. Even if I only liked 20% in the end, that's not bad. It just means that there's a lot of stuff you're not going to want. And sadly, while the game has a really good accessibility type option of letting you out of potential triggering content, you can turn it on or off, and then you'll get a little warning that says, hey, just so you know, this character, they may deal with topics like mental illness and anxiety, stuff like that, or they are a very sexual character, and maybe you don't want to talk to someone who's very sexual. This person may use foul language and you don't like that. So there are many different types of warnings you can get and content that may not be your thing. And if that is the case, you can tell them, I don't want to continue down this path. However, because you might be someone who wants to 100% the game, you're a person like that, a player like that, you can tell them, all right, I don't want to actually engage with this conversation and this character, but I would like to complete this arc, this storyline, this path with this character. And it'll ask you, okay, do you want to be friends with this character? Do you want to be in love with this character? Or do you want to hate this character? And you can choose that and be done with them, which is nice. But if you just find a character boring or not funny, you can't at any point get out of a conversation. Because there were times where I did not like a character, I did not think they were funny, and I just wanted to stop talking to them. And there's no easy out. There's no always option of, hey, I don't like you. I don't want to keep talking to you. Can I just fucking skip this? I wish that was in the game because of how many characters there are, how many datables there are. I wish each of them had an option to to have a quick exit, but they don't. And I think for me, the characters that are clearly trying to be more cheeky and funny, they don't work. When a character is very much so more in line with what you would expect them to be if personified into a real person, like your bed being a very sensual character, a very free spirit, someone who is open to having a lot of sexual partners and exploring the bedroom, but also someone who, on another end, a kind of conflict within them is also wanting that singular partner, that special person, outside of their more exploratory nature, and enjoying cuddles and all of that. I think it works so well. I'll get to the bed and why they were my favorite character, why I spent the most time with them, and why, in a way, it made me sad. Because I think when the game is focused on that and not just being funny, it's very well written. And the voice acting across the board is very good. I like the fact that with each character, when you go into their bio menu, you get to see who voiced them. The game starts off with, well, Felicia Day is your kind of inanimate object, your dateable guide, and you can, through ways, try and get into a relationship with them. I was surprised to find out it was Felicia's Day, because at times I could hear it, and at times I could not hear that it was her. But the first real object they put you on a date with is the door, which is voiced by Ben Starr, and I think it's very obvious why they would start off with Ben Starr with that voice and everything. But with all that, so I like when characters are that way. But when they're trying to be funny, like the treadmill is a Viking, and my only assumption to why it's a Viking is because I believe one of the biggest brands in the treadmill space is Nordic Track. So I'm assuming they're just like, hey, Nordic, Viking, there you go. And that one didn't work for me. I hated that character. And there are other characters of that vein that just don't jive with me. There's an exercise ball in your little exercise room as well, which I like the treadmill just in the sense that, and the varying quality of puns for names, I wish they were better overall. But I like the treadmill because the treadmill is just a treadmill turned an anthropomorphized treadmill, you call it. And it's just a dude who's been treadmillified. But with the exercise ball, they turn that into all of your exercise equipment, or just a not collage of exercise stuff. So they've got like rollerblades for elbow pads and so on and so forth, and they just are a complete mess. And I don't like that character all that much. But I enjoyed your piano, bringing them to life, and others as well. But it was the bed that I was the most attached to and enjoyed talking to the most. Another thing with the game is that it is very strict in instruction because you have been sent these glasses. They were stolen from the company you work at, and the boss is kind of worried about it. He's looking for them, and they were sent to you, and you're using them to gather information. And it makes it seem like there is a time frame, but I don't know if there really is. Disregarding all that, you have to interact with 5 objects every day. There might be a point where they give you another task to do. You have a fake Discord on your phone. You talk to some human friends, and you can engage with certain things that way as well. But your goal is to talk to 5 objects each day. You can talk to objects multiple times, but not in the same day. So you can talk to the same objects day after day after day and not make new connections if you want, but you can only talk to them once per day. And every time you talk to a character, time will pass, I think, by 3 hours. And this is like 9 in the morning, 12 p.m., 3, 6, 9, and then you go to bed. And this is important because there are certain characters when you talk to them, they'll say, I only like talking at this specific time. I only like talking at, or whatever. I was trying to think, I don't know why I had to think of something other than talking, but I only like engaging in whatever activities at 12 p.m. Any other time, I'm not going to be as open or as present in our conversation. So that is an important thing to also factor in. But and that's where I kind of wish there was the ability to just not do them all if I want to focus on a singular character, or skip dialogue with characters if I don't want to do that, if I don't like a character. But for me, the bed is the one I focused on. And it's because they are very much it's not even that they reminded me of the closest thing I've ever had to a very serious and powerful relationship. The closest I've ever gotten to a great relationship is with a person very much so like the bed. Someone who is very much so a free spirit and sexually open in that way, where I'm not, because I'm asexual. I don't like sex. Never enjoyed it. I don't even really like kissing. Though I know there's a giant umbrella with asexuality, and I think there is a term for someone who needs or is more of a romantic connection type of person, and someone who needs that emotional connection for some kind of form of intimacy. And there are people who don't even like that. They just don't want, like, romance is just off completely. They don't like the physical and they don't like the emotional. None of that really works for them. I very much so like that emotional connection. I love romance, and I love the innocent forms of intimacy, a la cuddling and spooning and stuff like that. But when you get to sex and kissing, no. I can enjoy kissing to some extent, and the degree to which I enjoy it is very dependent on my emotional connection to a person. The last person I kissed, been a long time, but I enjoyed that because it was someone who I wasn't in any kind of relationship with, but we had a really good evening hanging out. And when we parted, they asked if they could kiss me, and I was like, yeah, sure. And it was nice just because it was a nice little way of capping the night and capping the evening, the time we spent together that night. It was a little awkward though, because it was done outside of a subway station, and there were onlookers. It was the middle of the night, and there were people. At least one person I remember was cheering us on, and that was very uncomfortable for me. I did not like that. I did not like someone go, "Oh yeah, you go." I'm like, oh, I don't need an audience for this. But that is the way I'm there. And with the bed, I think the performance and the writing is so well done, and it reminded me of this person, my potential one great love, that I wanted to continue down that road every day with them, at least interacting with them every day, in addition to other characters. And when I finally made that connection, and it went from just, chatting to love, I was done with the game. And it was a little sad because it reminded me of this person this time in my real life, which showed me the power and strength of the game and its ability to elicit those emotions from me and remind me of those feelings in the writing of that character in particular. But for me, and this is going to vary from person to person, and how much you look at this as a game, or how much you're looking at this as a way to have a kind of connection, even though it is fake, it is digital, because it's going to vary from person to person. Some people will just look at this and like, this is a game. I'm here to min-max it. I want to get all love connections. I want 100% it. I'm focused on all that. I'm thinking about how I'm doing that. And there are other people who are looking at it as actually dating in a way. And for me, I found this character who I connected with and I went down the love path. I'm good. I don't need to, and I don't want to connect with other characters because I'm not a polyamorous type of person. So I am, and that's why, because I'm fine with this character and someone in real life being in an open relationship where I am a monogamous person, but my partner seeks other people. Because, for instance, with my asexuality, while I am willing to partake in those experience, I'm willing to have sex with someone and so on and so forth, because while I don't get any personal enjoyment from it, being able to please my partner brings me a certain degree. It's a different type of pleasure, but I enjoy that, because if I care for someone, if let's say it is a advanced relationship, where I love them, I want to bring them pleasure in whatever ways possible. And that makes me happy, even if I don't get the same kind of pleasure from the experience. But that is a difficult thing for a potential partner to deal with, I know, in that just knowing that you're not getting the same type of pleasure from it, that can be hard for them. And so if they need to seek sexual pleasure, for instance, from other parties, I'm okay with that. I'm also just not inherently a very jealous person. You know, just be honest. I don't care. But yeah, I'm willing to be in a relationship, an open relationship with someone who seeks other things from other people that I can't give them myself because I am the way I am. But I don't want to explore other relationships because I found the one I like in the bed. And so for me, the game ended there. That's not a bad thing. That's a fine thing. And that's a me thing. But in what I've played the game, and I would like to go back because I would like to just see more of it. But in the now, I'm good with my time with the game. I do think it is a very well written overall game, well done, lot to see there, a lot to experience. And if you are someone who likes dating sims, I think you are bound to find at least a handful of characters that you have an affinity towards. So I would highly recommend checking out Date Everything if that is your jam. That went on longer than I thought, but I hope you enjoyed that little conversation, because now we're going into a completely different territory with There's a Gun in the Office. This is a type of horror adventure game-ish? Horror is not right. You have been kidnapped, I am presuming, and you are locked in this bedroom. And each day you have between, I believe, 8 in the morning to 4:45 p.m. to escape your bedroom and learn more about the apartment you're being held in and finding a means of escaping. I believe you have 5 days in total to do this. And this includes finding a key, very first thing, to unlock your bedroom door. And then when you get in the hallway, you have to find a key to this door. And then when you go in there, you have to find some clues and some information, discover how to open up more of the apartment, and so on and so forth. And you are gradually opening up more of the apartment and learning more until you will supposedly find out what's going on and escaping your captivity. The cool thing about it is that when it starts to get close to 4:45 p.m. and you have to get back into your room, you have to remember everything you've done and make sure not to make any kind of mistake in terms of, did you leave the light on, or when you went into this room, was the light on? Was it off? Was this door of the cupboard open or closed? Where was the key? Was it on this ledge, so on and so forth? And every little mistake you make will probably add up. I made a few on the first day, didn't lead to anything bad. And then on the second day, I didn't make any. And that is a fun mental mechanic of the game, that memorization. The thing I don't like, though, is that it doesn't seem like you can get to the 5th day and fail, because you have a specific set of tasks you have to complete each day. And if you don't, then when you get back to your room, you can't go to sleep and move on to the next day, because it's going to say, well, you didn't do enough today. You didn't do enough today. And if you don't do that, you have to just start the day over. And on the other end, if you do everything the game wants of you on that day, and you still have plenty of time because you got through it real quick, you can't do any more. So there's a very specific amount of things you can and are supposed to do each day. No more, no less. When I realized that, it broke the game for me, because that meant I couldn't, if I didn't do well one day, if I didn't discover a lot, if I didn't figure out enough one day, I couldn't make up for it the next day, because I couldn't get to the next day. And if I managed to learn a lot of stuff real fast this day, I couldn't continue on and try learning some more information or whatever, because I had figured out everything I was supposed to that day. Once I realized that, I just stopped playing, because to me, the fun, the organicness of it all was lost, because it, in that moment, made me realize this is incredibly structured and there's no freedom in any way. That bummed me out, because I like the game conceptually in this way of it being, okay, you got 5 days to figure out what's going on, and you're trying to open up and learn more over this time. I like the idea that potentially if I was doing really poorly, I would just not learn enough by the 5th day and it'd be over. Or I can maybe get out of there if I was doing really, really well in 3 days, but that's not the case. I also, out of curiosity, just waited in the hallway until 4:45 p.m. to see what would happen. All it does is fade to black and say you didn't get back to your room in time. Try again. And that kind of hurt the game as well, because it meant I guess I have some captors who return, but there's no big actual bad that I can see. If I was out in the open, there's no scary monster or something that is going to scare me, basically. So there's a gun in the office. Kulebra and the Souls of Limbo is this incredibly beautiful adventure game where you play a snake in a very Dia de Muertes-esque aesthetic, Day of the Dead. So think Coco and The Book of Life, that kind of look, where you play a snake who's tasked with helping souls move on. You're in limbo, obviously. And the way it works is that you have 3 times of day that you are able to do things on. And it is, I believe, kind of morning, afternoon, evening, and nighttime. Things will only happen during one of those times. And the way it works is that the day is constantly looping in Limbo. And so the characters will constantly be doing the same things at the same times of day. I only did the first chapter, the first episode, the first story. But if you do something important, if you make a strong enough connection or figure something out and say this to a character, there is a way for you to make a lasting impression on a character in a way that changes them so that they will be different in the following loops. I really like that style of play. It allows for some fun puzzles, and the puzzles in the game are, from what I've experienced, very simple, not super obtuse. The writing is very good, very heartfelt, sweet, cute, lovely. The first story is about a mother and daughter. The father went away, never came back. They don't know what happened to him, and it's about them moving on past that. And it's very well written and very well handled. I could see where it was going, but still very well done. But the dialogue, the writing will give you very clear clues as to what you should be looking for or remembering by having the important text in conversations be highlighted in bold yellow, so that you know what this stuff that is bolded in yellow, this is important information to know, or things that'll guide you to check on this part of the environment. You navigate it freely. It's not a point-and-click adventure game, and you can start to spin and do like a tire type of thing to move around fast in the environment. Think Kirby's tire form. But I really, really liked what I played. It was just very sweet, very well written. I love the art. I was moved by the story, and I want to play more of it. The first chapter probably took me about an hour and a half or so. I'm not sure how many there are in total, but I was very, very pleasantly surprised by what I played and look forward to playing more. I might go back and do the whole first thing again and stream it, because I don't think it's going to be a long thing, but I think it's a nice thing to put on people's radar. That's another thing I like to do, or would want to do with some streams, is find a game that is good and bring it to the attention. That was one of my favorite things to do with the Tether backlog, when I was pleasantly surprised by things. I never could go into it with that intention, because I don't know if a game is going to be a pleasant surprise or not, but I always go back to Clone Drone and the Danger Zone as being this unbelievable pleasant surprise. And Kulebra and the Souls of Limbo, in what I played at least, it could drop the ball, sure, everything can, but at least in that first story, that first area, very, very delightful. Very, very lovely. Zombie Cure Lab is a management sim where you are controlling, taking over the management of this group of scientists up in Canada. Last chance at finding a cure for the zombie invasion, zombie infection. And it may work well on PC with a mouse and keyboard, but it is very clunky to use on gamepad. The UI is a bit of a mess. Controls are not all that well, and navigating them is very funky. Some buggy stuff going on, trying to navigate certain menus and wanting to select certain things, but I can't get to a specific row, and then it does something else instead. So in its current form, it just is a broken game currently, and I'm playing on Xbox. Could be a different story on PlayStation. Not sure if it's also on Switch, but at least on Xbox, as it is currently, it's a bit of a janky mess right now. So I would avoid it on Xbox at the very least. Console overall, probably. And if you are interested, check it out on PC. Check it out on Steam. And of course, I've never used it, but as far as I know, Steam has a very generous, of course, 2-hour, I believe, refund policy. The only thing I don't know about their refund policy is if there is a limit. If you do that, if there's a limit in terms of how many times you can do that in a calendar year. I don't know. I know Xbox has that. Xbox is a very good, easy to deal with, or easy to use refund policy, but they do have a limit on how many you can do. Then we have Alien Breakout, which is a very simple, straightforward, side-scrolling action platformer where you play an alien and you're going through this kind of science lab, I guess, getting from one door to the next. You will quickly get a gun that you can use to open doors by shooting switches. and kill hostile guards. You can also shoot scientists for no reason, but they're there, so why not shoot them? You'll get to areas where you are avoiding spikes and conveyor belts where you're trying to move and avoid missiles that are being shot at you. It's very, very easy for a good chunk of it. It doesn't really start to pick up in challenge, or it isn't challenging whatsoever until around stage 30. And there are a total of 100 stages. But it doesn't pick up in terms of difficulty until around then. Not saying it gets super difficult, but that's when it finally gets, oh, I need to actually maybe try and think a bit more here. But mechanically, it feels pretty good, and I enjoyed getting through those first 30 levels very quickly. And then when it got a bit more challenging, I was like, oh, now I have to actually be a bit on my toes. And they start to add checkpoints in the game, into the levels as well, so that when you get halfway through, you'll hit a checkpoint and you'll just start there if you die, which is a nice thing when they start to increase the challenge. But yeah, it's a $5 game. Currently, at the time of this recording, launch sale of $3.99, so $4. And if you like yourself a nice simple pixel side-scrolling action platformer, it's worth checking out. Get yourself some achievements. You have to get through all 100 levels to get all the achievements, though. So it's not quite the breezy achievement list like some other ones, because a lot of them will be like, hey, we have 100 levels in our game, but all you have to do is complete the first 25 to get all the achievements, because we know that's why you bought the game. But in this one, it's like, hey, no. Come on. Just do them all. Maybe there are more than 100 levels. I'm not even sure. That is, again, Alien Breakout. Solid little game. Maiden Cops is a side-scrolling beat-em-up that is very inspired by Streets of Rage, more in its type of feel and structure. And in terms of its look and vibe, River City Girls. It has a nice look to it, despite the fact that it's incredibly fan service heavy. Your characters are falling out of their outfits, as well as the NPCs, the opponents you're fighting against, except for the one who looks like a little girl because she has a flat chest. There's nothing to fall out of there. But it is very much so that. Jiggling boobs and all. And it's fine. It looks good. The production value is nice and all. The problem with it is that there's not a lot of variety or excitement to any of it. The characters you're fighting are just reskins of the 3 character types that you can play as. Because you have 3 characters. You have a little like girl one, a sort of mid-range one, and then a big buff girl you can play as, who is the only one who could pick up large objects and use them as weapons. And it's kind of like Monster Musume in that you're all animal creatures. I think the mid one is a lizard type. The little girl one is a bunny type. And the big one is maybe a centaur-like, horse-like. And you're just fighting enemies of that nature. They'll change them up a little bit, but they'll still have the same frame. But now the bunny type will have some kind of tail they can whip around. There's some kind of other animal version of it. But that is essentially what you're doing. So there's not a lot of variety there. You're just seeing the same characters, but reskinned in different animal variations. The bosses are, I think, maybe the same exact thing or a little different, but not that different. They're also not that difficult to deal with. I wish there was more food that you found throughout the levels. And the environments themselves. I've gone through 4 of the levels. The last one I did was on a bike. But the levels don't seem all that varied either, or the music's not that great on top of that. But the one on bikes, the way you attack is not by punching or swinging a weapon like you might think. It is instead, you pop a wheelie and then you just kind of go on top of the character. You're not going on top of them in any kind of collision way, but just sort of you overlap them. You go over them and it's doing damage while you're doing this. There's no kind of real sense of impact. Very weird. Very poorly done. driving level. It's fine. It feels all right. I really like that. And I don't know if any modern beat 'em up has done it the old way, but I love that at least when you are fighting, when you move to an area and it becomes a combat section, the enemies cannot scroll or move off screen. I like it when you get into those areas and instead of them being able to freely move off screen, they become invisible walls essentially. And then if you throw someone at one of the side of the screens, they hit it like there's a wall there as opposed to going behind. I just don't like it because there are times where you are trying to fight an enemy and if they're always moving backward, trying to avoid you, they'll move back off screen. You're like, great. Gotta wait for them to come back on screen. I hate that about old beat 'em ups. That's not the case here, so that's nice. The story, it's surprisingly wordy. Did not care about any of that. I think the game looks really nice in game with the pixel art. I don't think the art of cutscenes and story sections looks good. But it's fine. It doesn't stand amongst the best in the genre, which is to kind of be expected, but I don't see much reason to play it. Beat 'em ups are a tricky thing because they're all going to be repetitive. It's hard to really stand out, and this game is well put together. It just does nothing to stand out. It doesn't have any real unique element to it in terms of this really cool gameplay element or a really good story or especially great art or great music or whatnot. I think of 9 Monkeys of Shaolin, I think it was, which had really, I like the look of that game. I love the feel of combat. It had a more of a unique, really impactful feel to the combat. And it had really fun physics, which you don't see in a lot of games like that, which was enough for me to really enjoy playing that. None of that here. But it's a solid beat 'em up that is probably worth checking out when it's a little bit lower priced on sale. That is again Maiden Cops. Last game is TERASLIDE. This is a puzzle game where you're controlling a blue fox and you are sliding them across ice to get them to a designated spot. And as to be expected, when you're sliding on ice, they will keep sliding until they hit some kind of wall. So you're trying to find them and make them land on the designated spot without going past it. So you're trying to find where they can stop into a wall and make it there. It's fine. You have 3 goals in every level. You have, I think they're trophies or some kind of collectible to collect all of them in a level and then complete it. To complete a level in a certain number of moves or less, and then to complete a level without doing a certain turn. So don't send the wolf in the upward right direction or downward left direction, so on and so forth. So you have those 3 goals, or you can just ignore them and complete a level to move on to the next one. You don't have to do those, but those are a nice little thing to do for an additional challenge. And if you are trying to do them all and you're struggling with one, they have the solution, the input solution for each and every goal for all the levels, which is nice. But for me, what killed the game was the fact that I just didn't like the way the wolf controlled in terms of just rotating them and positioning them and the arrow in the direction I wanted. There's something that felt a little off about that. But outside of that, it's a fine one of those games. What do you call them, like a Sokoban type game? Is that what they are? Or am I confusing the term? Either way, it's a decent little puzzle game of its ilk. I don't like it aesthetically that much. I don't think it looks that great visually. And that slight control issue for me was enough for me not to really like playing. But it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. But that is again TERASLIDE, and that is going to do it for this here episode of the Pixelated Sausage Show. Once again, I am Mark Krishnez. Y'all can find me pretty much everywhere at PX Sausage. If you enjoy this here show or any of the stuff I do and what have you, you can support me and my nonsense over at patreon.com/PXS. There you can get access to the Sausage Dump. I just put up a new episode covering years 95 to 99 of me crafting my top 100 plus games of all time list. But in addition to that, we might see the new Attack the Backlog filler episodes and so on there, as well as other random things. But if any of that appeals to you, along with a private Discord channel, along with some fancy Discord roles, or you can just support me to support me, that is, again, all through Patreon, patreon.com/PXS. In addition to Patreon, you can find links to the site, the YouTube, the Discord, and so much more over at pxsausage.com. That is the letter P, the letter X, sausage.com. But that is it. That is all. As always, thank you for watching or listening. I hope you enjoy this here episode, and I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day. But for now, adios, arrivederci. Bye, bye.
It's go time, go daddy. It's go time.